what if the stories we tell ourselves, the legends that have echoed through centuries, are actually blueprints for our own lives, for how we understand the world?
That's a powerful thought.
Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into two, well, colossal figures of Western literature and thought, Ulysses and Faust.
Huge figures, and they're not just characters locked in old books.
No, exactly. They are foundational myths. They've shaped art, philosophy, even our collective psychology, really, from ancient Greece right up to today. Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack how these myths, Ulysses and Faust, have persisted and transformed across millennia.
And maybe pull out some key insights.
Yes, exactly. Extract the most important insights and reveal why they're journeys of ambition, knowledge, return, why they still resonate so profoundly with you listening today.
We'll be drawing on some rich sources, too. There's the comprehensive book, Ulysses and Faust, Tradition and Modernism from Homer till the Present, plus other critical analyses, cultural histories.
Right. So let's unpack this idea first. Western literature often traces its twin roots back to Homer's epics and the Bible. These two traditions give us this powerful lens, don't they?
They really do. And what's fascinating here is how critics like Matthew Arnold saw these roots giving rise to two fundamental temperaments in the West.
The Hellenic and the Hebraic.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Arnold described the Hellenic spirit as disinterested, flexible, full of sweetness and light. Now, disinterested didn't mean bored.
Right, not uninterested.
No, it meant pursuing knowledge and beauty for their own sake.
Right.
Without a specific practical goal.
Yeah.
Just pure curiosity and open-mindedness.
Seeking wisdom just for the joy of understanding it. Okay. And the Hebraic side?
That's more practical, disciplined, often quite dogmatic. Deeply concerned with moral law, with action, with doing the right thing.
Got it.
And T.S. Eliot, the literary giant, he saw these two temperaments as absolutely essential. He thought European literature couldn't even exist without both. The core insight, I think, is that these aren't just dusty academic ideas. They represent two basic human drives, one towards open exploration, the other towards disciplined, often moral action. And they still shape us today, probably unconsciously.
And these two powerful, almost opposing temperaments, you're saying they found their ultimate personifications in Ulysses and Faust.
Exactly. Ulysses heads up that classical humanist tradition.
Yeah.
Very human-centric skill, adaptability, civic life matter.
Okay.
Faust, though, is rooted more in that Judeo-Christian religious tradition, often called romantic. It's about sin, salvation, that famous pact with the devil.
Right.
Although it's worth saying, even those religious ideas get secularized over time. It becomes more about an existential search for meaning, for transcendence, not just strict religion.
So let's zoom in on Ulysses first, or Odysseus in the Greek. He's the man of many turns, the indefatigable plotter and schemer, the master of metis.
That practical cunning, yeah. Street smarts, almost.
And Homer didn't just invent him out of thin air, did he? He was already a known figure.
Oh, yes. He was part of Greek mythology before Homer. Homer really refined him, immortalized him. There's even this really interesting theory that the Odyssey might have been written by a woman.
A Greek Lady Murasaki.
Exactly. Because of its focus on the domestic, the complexity of Odysseus. Homer definitely wove existing stories together, and writers ever since. They've been captivated by Odysseus.
Even though he's not always honest. Plato wasn't a fan, was he?
Not at all. Moralists like Plato denounced his deceitfulness. But for writers, his wit, his inventiveness, his ability to tell lies that feel truer than the truth, well, that makes him an artist himself, a storyteller.
That's a great point, the trickster as poet. And here's where it gets really interesting for me. Virgil's Aeneas, the pious founder of Rome, he's portrayed as a kind of Ulysses. How does that work? They seem total opposites.
It's a fantastic paradox, isn't it? Ulysses is harsh, deceitful, think of the Trojan horse. Aeneas is pious, truthful, driven by divine fate.
Completely different motivations.
Utterly. But structurally, Virgil consciously modeled the first half of the Aeneid on the Odyssey. The sea voyages, the tempting women.
Like Circe or Calypso in the Odyssey.
Mirrored by Dido in the Aeneid, who nearly pulls Aeneas off his destined path. So the insight here is that these core narrative patterns, these blueprints, they're so powerful they can shape stories even when the characters have fundamentally different traits. Ulysses' influence on storytelling itself is just immense.
That's fascinating how that structure persists. Okay, let's pivot now to our other archetype, Faust. A much darker journey, it seems.
Definitely darker. I mean, here we have a figure who literally makes a deal with the devil.
Based on a real person, right?
Sort of. loosely based on a historical Johann Georg Faust around the late 1400s, early 1500s. The legend goes, this learned man, Faust, he's successful but just deeply unsatisfied.
Restless.
Exactly, restless. So he trades his soul for unlimited knowledge and, well, worldly pleasures. Early versions, like Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, a classic, yeah, they show him as irrevocably damned. He chose human knowledge, medicine even, over divine knowledge, theology. And for Marlowe, that sealed his fate. It's a stark, cautionary tale.
But Goethe's version, the really famous one, takes a completely different path. It offers salvation. That's a huge change from Marlowe.
It's absolutely radical. In Goethe's epic version, Faust seduces Gretchen, ruins her life, terrible consequences follow. Yet, ultimately, Faust is saved.
How? Not through being good, surely.
No, not through conventional piety. He's saved through his constant striving, his relentless activity, and also through Gretchen's pleadings from heaven. She embodies the eternal feminine.
Wow, that's complex.
It is. And this shift allowed the myth to evolve, to keep speaking to new eras. As the philosopher Kierkegaard said, every notable historical era will have its own Faust.
And we see that with Thomas Mann.
Absolutely. Mann's 1947 Dr. Faustus is a prime example. His composer, Adrian Leverkühn, makes his own pact, and his spiritual and physical collapse mirrors the catastrophe of Nazi Germany. Mann used the myth to critique the dark side of German culture and arguably modernism itself.
So Mann's book becomes this modernist work that's actually about the dangers within modernism, the ambition, the moral ambiguity.
Precisely. The potential for self-destruction, lurking within that unchecked intellectual drive, maybe losing your moral compass along the way. That's what Mann was exploring.
So the core idea here, the Faustian bargain, it's not just a literal devil deal anymore.
Not at all. It's become this incredibly potent metaphor for the choices we make. Sacrificing vital parts of ourselves, our integrity, maybe our long-term well-being, for immediate gain, power, knowledge.
You see it in psychology too, right?
Yes. In psychotherapy, it's used to describe how someone might, say, sacrifice their true feelings or needs in childhood just to survive psychologically in a difficult family.
Makes sense.
It's a powerful lens. Think about society prioritizing, rapid economic growth over environmental health. That's a societal Faustian bargain.
Or an individual sacrificing relationships or ethics for a career.
That's another form. It taps into that deep human desire to push limits, to transcend, but often with huge unforeseen costs.
Now, it's striking how geographically divided the influence of these two myths became. Faust seems much more prominent in Eastern Europe, Germany, Russia.
Yeah, that raises a really interesting question. The West, especially Italy, kept its classical heritage more continuously. Even after Rome fell, Dante knew his Virgil intimately.
Right.
But further east, that direct classical line was weaker or absent. German literature, especially after the religious wars, kind of had to reinvent itself. And Faust, with its Gothic roots and focus on inner struggle, felt more fitting than Ulysses.
So Goethe choosing Faust over a Ulysses story was significant.
Hugely. He apparently considered a tragedy about Nausicaa, the princess who helps Odysseus. That would have brought Ulysses eastward, mythically speaking. But he stuck with Faust. Wisely, probably.
And Russia?
Russia was heavily influenced by German culture in the 19th century. So Faust became incredibly popular there. Pushkin, Dostoevsky engaged with it.
Yeah.
Ulysses just didn't get the same foothold.
Okay, so we've traced them through the centuries. How did these myths fare during modernism? That huge cultural upheaval in the early 20th century, did they fuel it? Survive it?
Bit of both. Modernism was a massive rupture. You had figures like the futurists wanting to just burn down the museums, destroy tradition entirely.
Radical stuff.
Very. But the key modernists, people like T.S. Eliot, James Joyce, Thomas Mann, they weren't quite that radical. They were part of the revolution, absolutely, but they still engaged with tradition. They didn't just want destruction.
And Ezra Pound played a role here.
A crucial one. Pound was like the central connector, the major factotum of modernist English literature. He was instrumental in shaping both Joyce's Ulysses and Eliot's The Wasteland. And through his interest, he indirectly linked them back to Goethe's legacy, too.
And Mann, as we said, initially resisted modernism, but then embraced it for Dr. Faustus.
Yes. In exile, writing that book, he fully engaged with modernist techniques to create that powerful critique, a modernist work about the fatality of modernism, exploring those dangers of ambition without a moral core.
And speaking of Joyce, Ulysses, 1922, the landmark modernist novel, famously mapping Homer's epic onto just one day in Dublin.
Right. Leopold Bloom is Ulysses, Stephen Dedalus as his sort of Telemachus.
Jones was almost like a literary archaeologist, wasn't he? Digging into Homer to map onto modern Dublin.
He was, absolutely. He was fascinated by Homeric archaeology, the excavations on Ithaca. He wanted to ground the epic in this very real, concrete Dublin.
And the Odyssey's influence goes way beyond just high literature, doesn't it?
Oh, incredibly so. It has amazing cultural elasticity. You find it adapted into children's books. Yeah. Joyce himself first met Odysseus through Charles Lamb's version for kids.
Interesting.
Then there's ballet, opera. Monteverdi wrote Il Ritorno di Ulisse in Patria way back in 1640, and films, obviously. Murnau's silent film, The Coen Brothers' Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It just keeps getting reinvented.
I love that Tennyson quote, "To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield." It pops up everywhere, like in the James Bond film Skyfall. It seems to capture something essential.
It really does. You've hit on something fundamental there. Those last lines of Tennyson's poem Ulysses are just iconic.
And they're actually on a cross in Antarctica.
Yes, commemorating the explorer Robert Falcon Scott, who perished returning from the South Pole. This link between Ulysses and exploration, sea, land, even outer space, it's incredibly strong.
NASA uses Homer quotes.
Well, they quote Keats's sonnet on first looking into Chapman's Homer in publicity documents. The core idea is Ulysses is the ultimate symbol of the relentless human quest, that refusal to give up, even against impossible odds.
And psychologically, you mentioned something called the Ulysses syndrome. What's that?
Ah, yes, that's a fascinating modern echo. It's a medical term for patients who get caught up in unnecessary cycles of tests and treatments, often making things worse.
The kind of medical odyssey they didn't need.
Exactly. It reflects that mystical journey pattern, leaving, trials, return, but applied inappropriately. It really highlights Joseph Campbell's idea of the universal hero archetype, the monomyth.
The hero leaves, faces trials, comes back, changed.
We see it everywhere. Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, Simba in The Lion King. It's a fundamental story structure.
So these deep patterns even shape how we think about medical situations. And the myths get used politically, too.
Definitely. Even the Cyclops myth gets reimagined. Salman Rushdie, after 9/11, compared the U.S. to Polyphemus, a blind giant lashing out.
Yeah.
And conversely, some commentators called Mullah Omar, the one-eyed Taliban leader living in a cave, the Cyclops of al-Qaeda. It just shows how flexible these ancient stories are for making sense of really complex, dark, modern events.
It's also really great that the women of the Odyssey are getting re-examined now. Penelope, for instance.
Absolutely. And in really profound ways. It's not entirely new. Ovid, back in Roman times, wrote letters in his Heroides from Penelope's perspective. She's angry, suspicious, feels abandoned. A real person.
And modern feminist writers.
Writers like Inge Merkel and especially Margaret Atwood in the Penelopiad, they rewrite the whole story from the women's viewpoint. They explore their agency, their intelligence, sometimes their darker sides too.
It's not just about making them heroic.
No. Atwood's Penelope, for example, can be arrogant, vain, even cruel to her maids. The point is to give them complexity, flaws and all, challenging those old, often simplistic narratives. It brings the focus onto their experiences, their labor, their bleaknesses of the despairing heart, as one critic put it.
So that journey into darkness, the descent into the underworld, the Nicaea, that's not just some old literary trick. It still resonates.
Oh, profoundly. It's a deep psychological theme. Odysseus talking to the dead, Dante going through the Inferno, that takes on this chilling new relevance after the horrors of the 20th century, the World Wars, the Holocaust.
Primo Levi's accounts of Auschwitz, for instance.
Exactly. Levi explicitly draws on the Odyssey. He frames his experience in the concentration camp as a katabatic journey, a descent into hell where, paradoxically, he gained understanding.
Survival through understanding the depths.
Yes. This idea of survival, of forging your identity through these infernal journeys, through enduring absolute horror. It's now seen as almost defining modern subjectivity. The core insight is that maybe we're all survivors of some kind of personal Hades, facing our fears and hopefully emerging transformed. It's that ultimate trial by fire.
So whether we're talking about Faust's insatiable quest for knowledge and power or Ulysses' cunning long journey home, these aren't just old stories.
Not at all. They're living archetypes. We keep reinterpreting them to help us navigate our own lives. Ambition, identity, trauma, the struggle to return or find meaning.
The sheer adaptability is incredible.
That's what gives them their power, their immortal feelings and behavior, as one scholar put it. They reflect human nature, societal shifts across languages, cultures, media. Contexts change, but those core human experiences, they feel strikingly familiar.
So as you go about your day-to-day, maybe consider this. What modern quest for knowledge, what kind of Faustian bargain or what struggle for homecoming, maybe literal, maybe metaphorical, are you seeing around you or even experiencing yourself? And how might it echo these ancient, endlessly retold stories of Ulysses and Faust?